Good afternoon, everybody. Parshas Vayeishev. So today's parsha is Vayeishev, and let's just focus today on the first two verses. I want to spend some time looking at the first two psukim and really specifically what the Midrash says about the word Vayeishev. It's an unusual word. Vayeishev means he settled. Vayeishev Yaakov, and Yaakov settled in the land, the Eretz Migurei Aviv, in the land where his father had sojourned, the Eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. So yesterday, every day we study Rashi for a half hour. Yesterday we looked at Rashi's different explanations, and a lot of what Rashi said was taken from the Midrash, but not all of it. And Rashi took some of the Midrashim. If you want to see you can watch the full recording on our YouTube channel. But we're going to now focus on the Midrash's explanation of this word Vayeishev. The Midrash is fascinated by the word Vayeishev, meaning Jacob settled. First of all, it's not a term which is used by the other patriarchs. Also, why does the Midrash use this word when so clearly he did not settle? That his whole life was unsettled. His whole life was unsettled. So this is a term, and just the opening words are just gripping to us because it's the opposite of what happened. So let's see what the Midrash does with these words, Vayeishev Yaakov, and Jacob settled. So the first Midrash that's cited is a little bit opaque. Usually, actually, the Midrash starts with the most transparent explanation. It gets progressively more attenuated. But in this case, the Midrash starts by citing a verse from the Midrash Rabbah we're citing from, cites a verse from Isaiah. Now, so basically, what's bothering the Midrash? What's bothering the Midrash is that the Torah has already told us in chapter 35, verse 27, before it relates to all the kings of Canaan that were mentioned, it already tells us that Yaakov has come back and settled in the land of Canaan. It says that in chapter 35, verse 27. What does it say? I'll read the verse. It says there that Jacob comes back into the land, and it states, Vayavo Yaakov Yitzchak Aviv Mamre Kiryas Arba. And so basically Jacob came back to Hebron. So we're already aware that he's there. Why does it need to come back and repeat this? And so therefore, it also has already told us that Esav has moved to Mount Seir. It says that in chapter 36. So why is it repeating it? So the first explanation of the Midrash of the word Vayeishev is that it says in Isaiah, Bizakech Yatziluch Kibbutzayech. Bizakech means in your crying out, your kibbutzayach, your gatherings, Yatziluch, will save you. Meaning to say, Kinusov ukinus banav hitzilu miyad Esav. Jacob's gatherings and the gatherings of his children in prayer saved them from Esav's hand. As Isaiah, the verse from Isaiah says, "Ve'et kulam yisaruach yikach hevel." The wind, et kulam, all of them, the wind will pick up, and nothingness will take them. Ze Esav v'alufav. This refers to Esav and his officers. V'choseh bi yinchal eretz. But the one who trusts in me will inherit the land. That's what it means. Ze Yaakov Vayeishev Yaakov. So what this first Midrash is saying is we have just read in chapter 36 about all the kings of Esav. We've heard about the many kings of Esav, but they didn't settle in the land of Canaan. Why? Because when it became complicated and difficult and it became stressful and hard and there was pressure, Esav and his children and his officers and his chieftains, they took the approach, let us get out of here. But Yaakov and his sons, they gathered together in prayer and pray, and therefore they gathered together in prayer, and that's why they were able to settle in the land of Canaan. They weren't supposed to leave Canaan because Canaan was promised to them, to their father and to their grandfather. But Esav and his offspring, they ran. Now, of course, sometimes we need to run. We know that's why most Jews today are pessimists, because the optimistic Jews were the ones who stayed in Nazi German territory, and they didn't make it out. So that's why most of us are a little bit of a pessimist gene in us. But or they left earlier at some point. The optimists were killed. But the point is that Jacob settling is in contrast to Esav. We just heard about all the kings of Esav, and Esav went and settled in Mount Seir, but Jacob settled amongst the people of Canaan. He had trust and faith in Hashem. So that's the first explanation of what the Midrash says. Vayeishev, even though it was difficult, he continued to settle in the land. Comes along the Midrash with now a second explanation. The second explanation of the word Vayeishev also is not one that I want to focus on too much, but the Midrash brings it down. So of course we're going to share it and see what it has to offer to us. So the Midrash first cites in this context a verse from Proverbs chapter 28. It says, Nasu ve'ein rodef. The wicked ones run away even though nobody is pursuing them. Vitzad nasu ve'ein rodef rasha. The wicked one runs away even though no one is pursuing him. Vitzadikim, but the righteous ones, kikfir yiftach. The righteous ones are secure like a young lion. They're not afraid. They have emunah. They have faith in Hashem, as it states. Vayelech el arak rashiyah v'lo redifin le eretz. As it states that Esav took his, I mean, they didn't actually cite the verse here, but they just translate into Aramaic. But the wicked ones run away. And this is a reference to Esav running away, but Yaakov settled, even though he was in the middle of this turmoil. Rabbi Eliezer Amar. So the Midrash wants to say, why does Esav run away? Why is Esav running away in contrast to Yaakov settling? Esav ran away mipnei shtar chov, because of the promissory note. What's the promissory note? The promissory note means that when Hashem Yisbarach gave the land of Canaan to Abraham, he said, I'm going to give you the land, but he also said at that time, your descendants who will inherit your land, first they're going to go through a hard time. They're going to go through exile and persecution. Esav wanted no part of that, so he ran away. And Yaakov, on the other hand, was willing to settle in, even though he knew it was going to be hard. Now, we all know this is, on the one hand, how can we relate to this, Yaakov and Esav? But this is a message for all of us, that the true redemption, the true children of Abraham, the true children of Isaac and Jacob, when it becomes challenging in life, we don't run away, but we rise to the challenge, whether it means we don't run away from a personal challenge, from a professional challenge, that we are not afraid of the harder path, because we understand that is the path of Yaakov. When it became harder, when he realized what was at stake, that you're going to get this land, but first you're going to go through slavery and servitude and pain and punishment, Esav runs away to Mount Seir. He rejects it. He doesn't want to pay what's necessary. But Yaakov Avinu, he settles in the land. Yaakov Avinu settles. He says, I will stay. I will go through the hardship, because this is what it means to be a child of Abraham. One second, I know some people have questions, but just give me a few minutes. We're going to get back to those questions. So that's the second explanation of what does it mean by Vayeishev Yaakov. The first explanation, I mean, they're very similar to each other. So far, the first two explanations of the Midrash. The first explanation is that Yaakov gathered in prayer in recognition to Hashem of that he was not going to run away, whereas Esav ran away. And the second explanation builds on that. It says Esav was unwilling to go through the hard work that was necessary, the hardships which were necessary as part of the promise to Avram to give the land of Canaan. Esav didn't want it. He didn't want to go through that struggle. He didn't want to go through the hard years. He didn't want to sacrifice what was necessary in order to be redeemed. But Yaakov at that moment came and he settled. And the Midrash gives another explanation. Why did Esav run away? Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said Esav ran away because of the busha, because the humiliation. Esav looked at his life and realized that he had made very, very bad decisions. He had sold his birthright. He was embarrassed. He couldn't deal with it anymore. And so he ran away to Mount Seir. But Jacob, looking back at his life, was proud. And he was able to settle in the land. And that's what it means. Jacob settled in the land like a young lion. A young lion is not afraid of anyone. A young lion he sees his father and his mother as king and queen of the jungle. And the young lion knows, I'm the most secure creature in the forest. There's nobody more secure than me. And that's how Jacob settled in the land, knowing he was secure in his faith, so secure that he was not afraid because he knew that he was walking in the path of Hashem. Those are the first two explanations of the Midrash. But now we go to a Midrash that is always the Midrash now moves on to another explanation, another direction. And this Midrash has always fascinated me and grabbed me. And I think about this Midrash a lot. In fact, I started something called YouTube Shorts. I didn't start YouTube Shorts, honestly, but I started putting short Divrei Torah, less than 1 minute. If you go to our website, if you go to the YouTube channel, Yeshiva Sali Melech, you can see a 1 minute. I put this in 1 minute, but now we're going to get the fuller version. Everybody here wants the fuller version. We don't just want 1 minute, we want longer. So the Midrash states in the book of Job, Im shot yamit pitom, if the rod will suddenly kill. What does that mean? Meaning, if the rod will suddenly kill, then he will mock the tribulation of the innocent. So what does this mean? Midrash tells us, Antoninus Shalas Rabbeinu, the Roman Emperor Antoninus, once asked a question of Rabbeinu. That's Rabbi Yehuda Anasi. And he said to him the following, Amarei, Ma'od Ychsev, what do we do with this verse? Im shot yamit pitom, if the rod will slay the innocent person suddenly, then the continuation of that verse is he will mock the tribulation. Why are we mocking somebody who's killed suddenly? So that's what Antoninus, the Roman emperor, asked Rabbi, citing the verse from the book of Job. Meaning, why does Job say we're going to mock somebody who dies in an instant? So Rabbi Yehuda Anasi responded, Amarei, Gizor disav ma'a megalvin v'hu yivin me'a dinarim. It's like a parable or an analogy to a king who decreed that a person will receive 100 lashes, and in return for receiving the 100 lashes, they're going to be given 100 dinarim. Now, din sikum udin, v'dain sikum udin. So what does this mean? The amount of these dinars corresponds to the lashes, and the amount of these dinars corresponds to the lashes. But v'lo mafkinen midei kum. But if he doesn't receive all 100 lashes, he gets nothing. Meaning to say, if he somehow in the middle leaves, he gets nothing. So a person who in the middle of their struggles checks out is like the person who didn't go through with it. He started the process, but then couldn't completely commit. Their commitment was thin. And so therefore he was so close. He was at 99 lashes. He would have gotten the full 100, but he didn't complete it. That's why this verse is laughing at the one who is struck down suddenly by the Satan with that rod, because they couldn't make it through. They're being mocked for stopping in the middle. As Job complains, he will mock the tribulations of this innocent one. Meaning to say, the person who was unable to withstand all the tests and gives up in the middle. That's what the verse is referring to. So this midrash is just an introduction now to Yaakov Avinu, because he also was subject to afflictions, perhaps because he stopped in the middle. And it's very hard to say about such a tzaddik like Yaakov Avinu, but that's what the verse tells us. That's what the midrash tells us. So Amar Rabbi Yacha. So says Rabbi Yacha, and Rashi quotes this. Rashi quotes this in midrash, and it's always just like tore me up. Says Rabbi Yacha, b'shasha tzadikim yoshvim b'shalva. When righteous people are resting with tranquility, umavakshim leishev b'shalva, and they desire to rest in tranquility. Who can fault them? The tzaddik who's been working their whole life so hard comes towards the end of their life, and they say, just let me rest. Let me sleep till 8 o'clock this morning instead of waking up for sunrise prayers. Let me just sleep a little bit longer. Let me oversleep one day in my life. The tzaddik says, let me oversleep a little bit. Let me have a vacation. You know, the Lubavitcher Rebbe never once took a vacation. Once he became the Rebbe, he never took a vacation. The tzaddikim, can you imagine them? Can you imagine them going? Lubavitcher Rebbe saying, I'm going to take a couple of weeks and I'm just going to hang out on the beach. Can you imagine such a thing? Can you imagine? It's impossible. So he says, let's say a tzaddik would want to just say, let me take it easy. Let me dwell in tranquility. By the way, the word yeshiva is very similar to shalva. He says, let me dwell in tranquility. They want to say, let me dwell in tranquility in this world. Hasatan ba umikatreg. Satan comes and accuses them. Now, by the way, let me just say, I'm using this beautiful ArtScroll midrash, and they have a footnote. I want to interrupt with this footnote, because if Hashem blesses a person with tranquility, we're certainly allowed to enjoy it. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying a good vacation if its purpose is to help us be energized. None of us, I feel like pretty confident that none of us on this call are, on the level of like the Rebbe. The Rebbe is 1 in a trillion. People like the holiest tzaddikim. That we're speaking in exaggerated tones. I'm not here to criticize somebody who feels the need for some R&R in our lives in order to give us some energy, or to spend time with our loved ones and our friends in order to cement those relationships. That's not what this is about. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just the Midrash speaks in paradigms and archetypes, and so the Midrash is telling us that a tzaddik has a purpose here on this earth, and the tzaddik's purpose is to maximize, and we're supposed to take that message, which is being said in a very pure form, and try to bring it into our life in order to inspire. So, God forbid, I'm not trying to insult anybody with this, with what the Midrash was saying, but it's basically about an approach, and the approach is that we have to recognize every day that our time here is limited, and are we living our life in a meaningful way? Are we maximizing the reason why are we maximizing the spiritual reason why we're put here with our spiritual effort? So the Satan comes when a tzaddik says, I'm not reaching my potential. The tzaddik wants, let's say, God forbid, a person who is given by Hashem the power, the ability to be a tzaddik, to reach these spiritual heights, and then is just sitting there and is lying down all day and doing nothing. They said, I worked hard enough. Now's my time to chill. Amar, the Satan comes along and says, Vodayan It's not enough that the world to come is prepared for you in such a beautiful manner. God has prepared for you the beautiful manner of the world to come. Is that not enough for you? You want to take more in this world? You want to take this world as well? The whole world to come was created for you. And you should know that this is the case. Proof to you that if the tzaddik tries to rest in this world, it's not going to be good for the tzaddik, because Yaakov Avinu, Jacob sought to rest with tremendous tranquility in this world. That's why the distress of Joseph jumped up on Jacob, because Yaakov sought to check out. And this is Yaakov Avinu. This is the Midrash speaking. I can never say these words on my own. The Midrash is saying that Yaakov Avinu sought to just check out. He said, I had enough. I had a hard life. Sometimes we look at our parents, our grandparents, our earlier generations, and we say, look, we can't even imagine what they did to build this, to work so hard. Who could blame them for wanting to just check out? But Yaakov Avinu tried to check out. So therefore, the whole distress of Joseph jumped upon him, as it says, Vayeishev Yaakov, and Jacob settled. And by the way, says the Midrash, in case you're wondering, okay, like Jacob was justified. Jacob was justified in wanting a few years to just chill. The Midrash notes this, that Jacob suffered every day. Jacob's life was not without turmoil. So he was more justified than almost all of us in desiring to rest. The Midrash says, Lo shalvati v'lo shakatati. I was not, that says about Job, I was not tranquil, I was not quiet. Lo shalvati me Esav, lo shakatati me Lavan. That Jacob is saying, I had the troubles with Lavan, and I had the troubles with Esav. And I had the troubles with Dinah when she was kidnapped. And he could have said, I had the troubles with Rachel when she died. Vayavo Rogez, but yet he needed more turmoil in his life. Ba'ai Rogzo Shal Yosef, came along the turmoil of Joseph. I saw a lot of different commentary upon this, but first I want to share with you what the in the edition that I'm using, what they say. They have a little bit about this here in this Art Scroll edition of the Midrash Rabbah. They say that that this Midrash is meant to teach us about the ultimate tranquility. We shouldn't lose focus of the ultimate tranquility which we're going to get in the world to come. That this world can be seen as a world of pain, but any reward we have in this world is nothing. That we have to have the perspective. That's basically their point. And then they cite Rabbi Akiva Eger, which is basically found in the Chasam Sofer, which I have here. I have this Chasam Sofer edition also from Rabbi Ben Mintz. So I'll read what the Chasam Sofer says in a moment, but I want to just pause here and see if anybody. I saw some people had some questions, so I'll stop here and take some questions.